Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never-ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing. Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 530 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. I hope this finds you feeling peaceful mentally, or at least knowing you can find mental peace and working towards that. One thing that plays a pivotal role in finding peace is, for me anyway, is my environment. As an interior designer, I'm able to create feeling through space, and one of my favorite feelings to create is peace and calm. That's one thing I feel like most of us can agree on. We all know a peaceful space when we see it. But knowing how to create that's a whole other thing. Like, I know all of you listening have something you do really well, something that's innate. Maybe you have found that, maybe you haven't yet, but you do have something. And for me, that's design and also a passion for mindfulness. And those two go really hand in hand. Our environment shapes our mindset more than we realize. And a chaotic space can make finding peace so much harder. We don't need that in this world. I mean, have you ever sat in a space and thought, man, I love the way this feels. I never want to leave. It just feels so good being here. How about the opposite? Or maybe you're in a room where you can't put your finger on it, but you just cannot wait to get out of that space. Now, if you have an eye for design, you can probably pinpoint some or maybe all of the problems in a space like that. But if you don't have a design eye, it can be really challenging because you know you don't feel good in a space, but you aren't really sure why. This episode is going to go a long way in fixing that. So being an interior designer with a passion not only for design, but also for mindset, self-care, and self-improvement is what drives me to help people create an atmosphere, not only in their head that's calming and feels good, but also in their home. I mean, even if you meditate daily and you work on your equanimity all the time, having a space, whether it's your office or your home or your car, that calms you, that makes you feel peaceful, that makes life so much more beautiful and enjoyable. In my opinion, it's low-hanging fruit for increasing our happiness. Now, with my podcast, I always hope to help you bring yourself peace through mental calmness and clarity. But with design, I really find it's a lot of the same work. It's just external instead of internal. I mean, we really need both of those. By being aware of your thoughts and taking responsibility for every action you take, you're empowering yourself. That's the goal of the podcast, is to help you find calmness and peace no matter what you're going through. Your home, though, shouldn't add chaos to your life. But if you don't have a design eye, chaos in your home can be a little bit challenging, not only to identify, but also to fix. So a space doesn't feel good, but you have no idea why, which makes it really hard to fix. I've worked with a client on and off for about 18 years. I met them when I did a design show in 2007, and since then, I've had the privilege of designing not only their home, their main home base, but also their vacation home. They have a barn there, and they also have offices that I've designed. And when I first met them in 2007, they had just finished and moved into the home that they live in now. But it was brand new. They designed and built it themselves. Well, during our first initial walkthrough, I noticed a lot of the design aspects that I didn't love. Now, the great room had too many clashing elements, like a busy fireplace and poor lighting, which made it feel chaotic. At the time, though, they loved it and weren't interested in changing the big stuff, so it was my job to do the best with what we had, and that's what we did. Now, even after adding furniture and drapes to that room, it still felt a little bit off. It just didn't feel comfortable and cozy. The things that we added hadn't really helped, so it sat relatively unused for the next 15 years or so as we worked together on several of their other projects. Well, years later, they were ready for an overhaul, but wanted to start with the husband's office. He told me, I want you to totally redo it. I'm not worried about budget. Let's just do it right. And boy, did we ever. It turned out so gorgeous and calming and sophisticated that it sort of became a catapult for a total overhaul to the rest of the house. I mean, the office was so welcoming that even when he was out of town, sometimes she would go and just hang out in there. Well, ultimately, last year when she called me, she said, I kind of want the whole house to feel like his home office feels. Now, I totally agreed. And so we're going to have to make some big changes to that great room. And she agreed to all of it. Well, when we were going over the plans with the husband, there was a lot of the budget was going into that great room. It's a big, big room, which he never liked and never went in. He actually told me, he said, it doesn't matter how much money you spend in there or what you do in there. I'm not ever going to sit there. I just don't like that room. Now, he is great, but he can be a little intimidating. But when he said that, all I heard was a challenge. His wife and I actually looked at each other and said, game on. Well, fast forward to today. I was visiting them this last week. It's been a few months since we finished their overhaul, and we were standing in that room, the great room, and the wife noticed that the pillows weren't just right. So as she was fixing them, she looked at me and she smiled and she said, I am constantly having to fix these pillows because he sits in here all the time. Mission accomplished. We both just were so elated by that. We laughed. But she said, seriously though, he loves it and we use it all the time now. It was really a good feeling to hear that. So the reason I tell you that story is so many times clients have rooms that they want to love and they don't. They don't love it and they don't understand why. That great room originally was chopped up and cut in half by a pretty colorful brick paver fireplace mantle with bookshelves on either side that were chock full of things. The drapes were striped, and even though they were neutral, they still felt chaotic now. And yes, I have to take credit for them because I did install them 18 years ago. But basically, in a nutshell, we calmed the whole space down and took out a majority of the clutter. We fixed the lighting, which was not good. And instead of having small tables scattered everywhere, we had this huge 6-foot square coffee table. And the only thing on it was a large concrete bowl of live moss and then a small fern and a small succulent arrangement. Live plants bring life and energy to a room in such beautiful ways. So calm, welcoming spaces are my favorite. I don't know about you, but every home I think should have at least one place where it feels calm and safe and welcoming. I mean, our lives are chaotic at times. Our home shouldn't be. So how does a chaotic home look, you might wonder? Is my home chaos? Is it chaotic here and I don't realize it? Well, I have a list of things that can be so easily fixed, and I would be willing to bet you have at least one of these going on in your house right now. And when I give you this list, though, understand that I know people have different tastes, and that's a beautiful thing. But everyone knows a calm space when they're in it, and it can be created anywhere. You don't necessarily have to change the architecture. It's mostly about giving your brain a place where it doesn't have to feel so charged. I mean, when we're out in the world, we have to deal with traffic and crowds and flashing lights and computer screens. When we're in our home, we shouldn't have to. In fact, we don't have to. It doesn't take a lot to make a room calming. So first things first, this is always on my agenda. It's usually the number one thing I address. It's lighting. Now, while it matters mostly at night, it still matters a lot. With warm incandescent bulbs harder to find these days, you know what I'm talking about? Picking the right LED is the key. So picking the wrong bulb is an easy mistake to make. So my suggestion here would be to lessen the chaos in any space. Number one is to have all your lights in your home be the same color value. So don't mix cold bulbs with warm ones. This causes chaos. Number two is to have all of your bulbs be 2700 Kelvin. You can find this metric on any light bulb box. And bonus if it's dimmable. But 2700 Kelvin is a warming, pleasing light. I'll put that in the show notes. And number three, if at all possible, don't even turn on your overhead lights unless they have dimmers on them and you can set them to feel beautiful. Otherwise, just place lamps with warm bulbs strategically in the rooms you spend the most time. You can get a really nice lamp from Home Goods for $20. It's totally worth it. Okay, secondly is clear the clutter. I know you've heard that a million times, but stacks of magazines and books, bills laying around, laundry piled up. These are just a few ways clutter shows up. Look around the room you spend the most time in as if you have never been in that room before, or like you're having someone very important coming over. What clutter have you stopped seeing that is subtly bothering you but hasn't hit the part of your brain that does anything about it? I have to do this regularly because we read a lot, so books pile up. Clear the clutter. Your brain will thank you. And finally, Have fresh flowers or greenery to breathe life into your room. And when they die, discard them and buy them again. Literally, it could be $5 per week. I mean, you could not have a Starbucks coffee and you could get your flowers. Or it could be free. If you have greenery in your yard, I've a lot of times cut greenery out of my backyard and put it on my kitchen island. I love when I can do that. I feel like healthy live plants or fresh greenery make a space happy and welcoming, and it tells everyone that life can thrive in that space. I always keep them around. I love eucalyptus. It's inexpensive. It lasts a long time. It smells wonderful. It reminds me of my grandmother. She used to always keep fresh eucalyptus around. I think I appreciate it more today than I did when I was young. Nothing says welcome like fresh flowers and greenery. Now, why do you think they do that in high-end hotels? Because it feels amazing. You deserve that. My challenge to you this week is simple. It's to swap your bulbs for warm 2700 Kelvin ones, clear the clutter from your space, and add fresh eucalyptus in a simple vase. It's that simple. Share this with 3 people who'd love a calmer home. They'll thank you later. I love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few days. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.